I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Today's episode is brought to you by the 10K Collective. The 10K Collective is a collection of men and women who are doing at least $25,000 a month on Amazon in the UK, US, Europe, doesn't matter, but that is the figure as a minimum. Now, why that figure? Because it means you get to meet with like-minded people who are serious about Amazon, who are doing well, and who are ambitious to do better rather than knocking around with newbies, which isn't going to help you if you want to scale up from 6 figures a month to 7 figures or whatever you're ambitious to do, 4 to 5 figures. We have people who are doing up to around the $250,000 a month mark. And as I say, the lowest is 25K. So it's still quite a big spread, but we have amazing things that get shared. You will get 30 minutes each, minimum of 20, 25, even in a really busy month. And there's only 8 to 12 people at any given meeting. So what do we cover in the meetings? Well, we cover topics from how to stay in stock, make more money by not missing out and not being out of stock, dominating a market and the mindset needed, handling whole container loads, how to predict stock needed, for example, how to get a product on primetime British TV for free, as one of our members did back at Halloween last year. So these are not prescribed by me, and it's not a set course. It is simply what comes up, what you need to handle right now to move your business forward. It's very simple, robust format. It's doing really well. We've got great loyalty from the members. I think out of 10 people that have joined it so far, about 8 are still with us after several months, which is a real testament to the fact that they're getting value and there's a great feel of community and we have a lot of fun. We take business seriously, but we also try not to take ourselves too seriously. We have a lot of fun. We're very open and we have a lot of serious debates that actually result in people doing stuff and taking action, like opening up in America, like going to Germany, like, doubling their orders. I mean, serious action takes place as a result of these meetings, and it's also good fun. You'll need to be able to get to London, as well as doing 25,000 a month minimum, roughly in dollars, and it's application only. So if you want to check that out, go to amazingfba.com/mastermind. Make sure you click through to the 10K Collective page rather than applying for the Zero to Hero Mastermind, which is just for those who are just starting out. Thanks very much for listening. Now, on with the show. Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Amazing FBA. Today, I'm delighted to welcome back on the podcast a real titan of e-commerce selling and online marketing generally. And that sounds a bit too general, but you're going to see for yourself. This is the man to listen to for lots of different topics. Jason Miles of Winning on Shopify. He's a Shopify business owner, the co-founder of Pixie Faire, an e-commerce company. He's the author of multiple books on e-commerce. And he's also the co-founder of So Powerful, a charity as well. So he doesn't just do stuff for his own money, but to help other people as well. He's also Udemy's most popular e-commerce instructor. So that's quite the CV. Welcome to the show, or resume, as you would call it.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here. It's an honor.
Great to have you back. And obviously, since I hired you as my coach about 4 weeks ago, we've been talking pretty regularly as well. And obviously, I hired you for a reason, having spoken to about 50 e-commerce experts, over 100 interviews over the last couple of years. It says something that I thought you were the man for the job. So obviously delighted to have you on. I really rate your insight into the e-commerce world and internet marketing more generally. Just for those who haven't heard you before, give us a bit of a background about yourself. I'll give them this sort of quick version. Let's have a little bit more depth in that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a kitchen table entrepreneur. My wife and I started our e-commerce business in February 2008, so just passed our 10-year milestone. Before that, and really kind of layered on top of that a little bit, I had a 20-year career in nonprofit management and have an MBA with a focus on international nonprofit management. And so, I love entrepreneurship, but never had a shot at doing it until my wife and I decided we needed to try to sell online. And that was the opportunity to begin an online business, and ultimately allowed me to retire from the 9-to-5. And the business has scaled and scaled. I'm happy to share all about it. I think people like hearing from me because I say every detail. I mean, I don't hold anything back. I'm happy to tell you exactly where we sell online, how we sell, what we do, and go deep into the details because of the uniqueness of our business. And so that's a little bit about us. Our primary e-commerce site's pixiefaire.com. And we've done 2.5 million digital downloads since we started. I think in June, we did 75,000 transactions alone. So that's sort of the scale of our business, and we're rolling right along. And out of that has come a charity that we're really passionate about, that I'm spending more and more time on. and it's designed to create jobs that enable academic success in Zambia. So the charity is a key part of what we do, and it kind of all weaves together. So.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And I have to admit, I didn't even know you had an MBA, which is a bit of an oversight considering how important that is as a business sort of backbone intellectually for consulting or business work. So even more impressive than I remembered. So today we're going to talk about digital goods. Now, I had you on a while ago. We talked about Shopify, and that's a big leap mentally for a lot of Amazon sellers. And you said yourself that, you're often the Shopify guide in the Amazon conference, and, people need a bit of persuading to think outside the box sometimes. And we all get tunnel vision sometimes. And it's important to focus, but it's also important, I guess, to recognize when you're missing a parallel opportunity that is not actually 100 miles away like you thought it was, but is 10 feet away and out there for the taking. So that was one thing. Now, another whole thing that we just touched on, and that I said we definitely got to get you back on the show to talk about, is digital goods. So this show has been pretty much for 275 episodes, whatever it is now, coming up 3 years, just about 3 years actually. I have to have a little celebratory anniversary.
Congrats, yeah.
Thank you. But I mean, it's been all about e-commerce and all about Amazon. So this is a double sort of move, but it's something that I'm personally getting more involved in creating digital goods. Just created the private label process course for Amazon sellers. So I'm now more in the weeds, as it were, of creating that stuff. And I'm realizing just what a huge opportunity it is, as well as bringing its own challenges. So the first question, I've kind of half answered it from the sort of person doing it perspective, but how does e-commerce and digital goods correlate? Is there any relevance for Amazon sellers? Should they just kind of bypass this and go on to the next thing on their podcast list?
I think there's huge relevance for the right type of online sellers. In general, because I'm real familiar with FBA and Amazon selling. My business partner on our coach and consulting biz is a top Amazon seller. So we work with a lot of people that come from that background. And I would say in general, if you're an arbitrager, mercenary type, selling anything to anyone, then you're a couple steps removed from being ready to make a transition to digital goods. But if you have a private label brand, or you're starting to stick into a specific category, fashion, household goods, electronics, whatever, if you've got a category you frequently sell on in Amazon, either your own product or someone else's, then you're literally one chessboard piece move away from having a good, solid digital goods business. And I can explain how. And we did talk about Shopify before, and these topics, I think it's, in my mind, how we categorize them is Shopify is about the platform you could sell on. The question of what you should sell is obviously the other top of mind thing, which is the harder thing, which is a lot of people rack their brain around that. And so digital goods is obviously an answer that can make a lot of sense. And for Amazon sellers, here's how it makes sense. Last week, we just did a blog post and a go live about this. And basically the call to action on the blog title was how to educate your customers and make money at the same time. And that is the, I guess you could say, kind of foundational idea is, do you have a customer base that wants any type of how-to information, historical information, collector type information, anything related to the product that you're selling? If they're hungry for any of it, or any percentage of them are hungry for any of it, then you've got an opportunity to create a digital good, in answer to that question of what they're looking for. And that's your first entree into digital goods is your existing customers have information type needs. You can fulfill that need and position yourself as an expert in the space.
Excellent. So let's just dig a little bit into this then. So I like the way you've put it. So Shopify is about the platform you sell on. Yeah. And I guess on Amazon, we get a bit obsessed with Amazon being a business model in itself. And actually it's part of a business model, and a healthy business needs to have an independent existence. So that's the whole Shopify kind of thrust of things, as well, of course, as multiple other platform options. So yeah, this is about what we sell. So again, it's sort of breaking apart this monolith that we have perhaps more in our heads than in reality of what is Amazon. Yeah, okay, it's a platform and it's a set of customers. and it's a marketing channel. Okay, good. So we get a different platform. Now we're thinking about customers. Now we can think about, okay, what am I going to sell them?
Well,
So,
it's not even necessarily a different platform, because obviously Kindle is a
okay.
part of it. I mean, it's just off of FBA. It's
Yeah.
off of the, third party, merchant selling side of Amazon, and get
Okay.
yourself onto Kindle and you're there.
Okay, good point. Very good point. Actually, so I'm creating an artificial distinction that doesn't exist even in the Amazon world.
Yeah.
That Amazon can do digital goods, of course, Kindle, which you know about having published. How many Kindle books have you published now? How many titles?
Well, I've taken a few down, so technically it's kind of like 10 total books, and 3 of them were with McGraw-Hill, and are in bookstores. Best of those is Instagram Power. I'm actually revising it and expanding it right now. It'll be out in March. But then the others were done self-published, through Kindle and CreateSpace and Audible, which ACX, which is Amazon's platform for audiobooks. So
Okay, so actually, 3 types of goods almost. Audible. Okay, yeah. Okay, so actually, Kindle, Audible, and you were saying just real physical books as well, by the sound of it, published by someone else.
CreateSpace is technically this weird magical place between physical and digital, because actually what you create as the writer is a digital good, and what Amazon sells to the customer is a physical good, and they do the print on demand service. It's really this amazing bridge product in a weird way. But so CreateSpace is print on demand books. So.
Yeah, excellent. I'm finding myself taking notes, which is always a good sign, although it messes up a podcast. But I'm like, I've got to capture this. So just to reflect, we're already getting in deep here. I mean, actually, I'm making an artificial distinction, aren't I? I buy stuff on Amazon. Yeah. Why am I not thinking, okay, Kindle are digital goods? Okay, famously, Kindle is a platform on which one can publish, run by Amazon. Audible, of course, I guess it's an Amazon company, right? And they're the audio books. Yep. And then real physical books, actually, it's kind of a digital good anyway. What does digital good mean? I suppose the distinction between digital and hard good is a bit artificial, in the sense that if you buy a calendar, you're not buying 12 sheets of paper. You're buying the photos, which happen to be carried on 12 sheets of paper, I guess, right? Yeah. So plus the information on it. So I guess the oldest digital good in the world is probably a book written by a monk and copied by another monk, right? I mean, I suppose it's the information that you want.
Gutenberg, I guess, made some
Gutenberg
progress.
made some serious inroads into that, and I guess the next thing would be Kindle. I'm sure that Jeff would love to hear that. Yeah. That said, so okay, this is we're already pointing out the fallacy of, even within the Amazon universe, the distinction between hard and digital goods. Yeah. So what else? Let's dig a bit more broader than Amazon. What would you consider a digital good to be? How would you define that?
Yeah, it's actually I think I mentioned this to you earlier, but somebody should come up with a periodic table of digital goods. And the thought occurred to me, because what you're asking is a classification question. And the universe of potential digital goods is getting larger and larger and larger all the time. I mean, and it's expanding in interesting ways. So what I always think about is, obviously, you don't, as the seller, have any physical item in stock, or through any manufacturing process have to organize physical product. So to me, the digital good is a digitally delivered item.
Okay.
Now, again, CreateSpace book writing is a little different than that, but let's leave that aside and just say, if it's digitally delivered, it's in the wheelhouse of digital goods. Now, there are a lot of things that are digitally delivered that are free, and there are a lot of things that are digitally delivered that are paid. So, but that's not, to me, that's not the bifurcation point. The clarifying piece is it digitally delivered? And so then that creates a universe that really needs a periodic table, because it is a large catalog of items. And I mean, you could rattle them off, but just in general, big picture stuff, I always think of like the file format types. Like, the Kindle books we mentioned already is called .mobi format or .epub. So it's a file format. And I don't know why my mind kind of gravitates to the file formats, but then obviously PDF files are what we sell on Pixie Faire, and have done about 2.5 million of them downloaded. The reason we have our own Shopify site, as I mentioned in my prior conversations with you, is that we couldn't sell those on eBay or Amazon. They don't sell PDFs, which is weird. But
Yeah.
and you think about that. But so we had to sell our own on our own site. So, but that's PDFs, but then you've got other things like obviously the MP3 files or all the podcasts you're uploading to iTunes and everywhere else are all MP3 files. Those are all digital goods. We're creating a digital good right now. It's being distributed through iTunes and Stitcher and whatever, and consumed for free. Now you're going to monetize that through either paid placements or some type of advertising, share that you get, third-party monetization. So that's a digital good, and it goes on and on. Photography has a huge space for digital goods. As soon as Apple made the smartphone, apps became in essence digital goods that have real utility. So is Instagram a digital good? I suppose it is in a way. So the periodic table just needs to be totally fleshed out, I suppose, and we can't do it justice just in a couple minute conversation. But
wow. Okay. So there's actually it's almost like there's a sea of digital goods, and there's some hard goods floating in the middle of it. Almost, it sometimes feels. I mean, when I think of some people I talk to who I'm trying to persuade them to actually use their imagination to sell things rather than just grab whatever looks to have good numbers on Amazon right now. And a lot of them actually, if they spend their lives in knowledge work, like an accountant or a lawyer or whatever, they really don't use a big variety of physical goods. But the digital things they touch, as you're saying, are immense every single day. So, and that's true in my life to a degree.
Well, it's
as a
true
podcast.
for all of us. I mean, the whole world has moved to a digital experience. I mean, the smartphones have, it's everything is done now online. It's so interesting. But nonetheless, I mean, this is where if we can go even deeper, there are trends to these things. Kindle books are on the decline compared to podcasts. Podcasts are getting hotter, and Kindle consumption is declining. Kindle book consumption. And there's reasons for that. I mean, it's because it's about access, it's about bandwidth, it's about, high quality content that you can get through data without limitation. All those types of barriers are being removed. Yeah. So.
Okay, interesting. So that there are sort of trends going on, and you're right. The ongoing trend, I guess, that the Amazon sellers and e-commerce sellers of hard goods are part of is e-commerce, which traditionally, I suppose, in the narrow definition, is selling physical goods but via an online channel. Everything's going digital anyway, so I guess this is just taking it to the next level, which is like just cut out the middleman, just do digital all the way. For example, I used to sell metronomes, but actually I realized that I don't really use one. I've just got an app on my phone. Like any musician, I want a metronome to see if I'm playing in time, but now I tend to just automatically just download an app. I don't go and buy a physical good to do that job. It's the same job.
But the metronome still exists. And that's the interesting part is all of these types of industries are making conversion efforts from physical to digital. And the question is, how does that relate to a niche or industry that you're familiar with? And how can you participate in that exercise? And you know what? We're just at the beginning of this, man. I mean, what they say is 8% of all retail sales are e-commerce, or 8 to 10% in that range. 90% are still offline. And so we're early into this, So
I think so. I mean, but what's really interesting, I think, is that I think we're really, really early into the digitization, if you like, of the formerly physical. I mean, the idea that back in the day, I guess in the early 2000s, that e-commerce and was really tiny, but online internet marketers tended to sell ebooks of the most ugly variety for large amounts of money, and then basically Amazon made that mainstream. Yeah. So buying a Kindle book, even for me, is just as mainstream as buying a physical book. For example, the last book that I read of any moment, which was a really serious couple of business books, was the Blue Ocean Strategy, which is by a couple of Harvard MBAs or something. They're serious people, and I read it in digital format. You know what? I bought the hard copy and I took it with me when I was house sitting recently somewhere else and had a large amount of time. I thought, and I didn't open it, and actually I own both, but the one that I consumed was the digital one. How interesting.
Now, see, I have that book too, but I have it in Audible, and the way I consumed it was through the audio version. And what was interesting to me in that experience was it has a lot of charts and graphs. So as I was consuming it for Audible version, I wanted the physical copy because I wanted to see the charts and graphs. So I went to their website, and they've got tons of resources. It's a fantastic book, by the way. So, and then the Blue Ocean Shift book is new too. But anyway, so that's the idea, that there's these modalities, is what I call them, for various types of content. And obviously physical book, Kindle book, or audio book are sort of the three classic ones that are becoming tried and true, you know.
Excellent. All right. Well, so we've got a couple of other ideas that we were knocking around earlier. So digitally downloaded items includes multiple things. I guess, you know, we've talked about apps, PDFs, Kindle files, photography, of course, of any description. What else did we say? Yeah,
music,
and
would be a huge
music,
one.
MP3. Yeah, music is absolutely massive, of course. Yeah, as well. So it's another type of MP3 file. So what about? You've mentioned a couple of other things to me. Online courses. Tell me about that.
Sure. Yeah.
Same universe.
I think it does reside in the same universe. So if we had a periodic table, one whole category would be files, like we just described. Another whole category might be recurring membership programs. Okay. And then a third category would be video courses or video content. I mean, what is Netflix, right? I mean, it is delivering digital goods day in and day out. They spend $8 billion or whatever last year making movies. So online courses would be one, and then recurring membership. Now, recurring memberships have become on trend in the last 2-3 years with digital, you know, sellers and really in sort of the information product, how-to guru type people. And what they found, I know this is true because obviously we all sort of see them and get their emails and through their products generally. But you know, one of the best in the world at that stuff is Brendon Burchard. You know, Frank Kern comes to mind. You've got these guys that are traditional how to make money online type people. Now, they wouldn't like me classifying them that way, but nonetheless. But you know, when they start releasing monthly recurring membership programs and scaling it and talking about it with their inner circles, you know that there's something's afoot. So we didn't have a monthly recurring membership program with our company until last April. So it's 17 months old, 18 months old, and we have 1,100 people in it, and they pay us roughly $10 a month, and that math adds up. And you start to hear these stories over and over. I mean, I hear this all the time. People are creating recurring membership groups that have a low price point, sort of Netflix style pricing. The big time gurus can bump that up to $27 a month or $49 a month. I think Frank Kern's is $3.99 a month. It's too sweet for me, but my good friend is in that monthly recurring group of Frank Kern's for $3.99, and he loves it. He says it's fantastic. He raves about it. He always tells me I should join it, but I'm too much of a cheapskate. So, but you get the idea. I mean, so then the question is, for your niche or industry, could you create a monthly recurring membership program to feed information to your, you know, real devotees who are focused not on you necessarily, but on a topic, you know, a niche. And that's the real, you know, key question. And then you take a leadership role, you get them info, and you can do that either through your own expertise. You can do it through being a reporter and bringing in other experts. You know, you sort of kind of act as the moderator, or some combination of those two. It's tried and true at this point. It's working really well.
Well, I have to say, as somebody who's sitting here doing the podcast with an expert in an industry and interviewing them, I can't deny that there's something going on here. And I suppose what I hadn't thought of it as is a digital good. And often when I talk to you, what I get is that clarity of thinking, which is or a different way of looking at the same thing, which sounds very abstract. It sounds initially something I'd be suspicious of, in the sense of, does this make money? But actually, a lot of the time I've found that a small shift mentally opens up my way of thinking about something, and then it makes it something that can become a sellable commodity as opposed to just an idea. And I think that shift is so crucial. Yeah. And what fascinates me about the era we live in, I can just sit there, you know, talking about kitchen table business. I could sit there back in the day, sitting in my kitchen table with a microphone and a camera, and just start talking about Amazon because I was doing it myself. Now I suppose I feel a bit more of a legitimate business because I'm plugged into people like yourself, very, very knowledgeable and expert people. I know probably people who collectively, my friends probably do about $40 million a year on Amazon, and they're the ones who I didn't even talk about publicly. But it all grew really out of me just making a decision and making mental distinction somehow, which is.
And you were making a decision to be a thought leader with a digital good business in that space. And that's a traditional jump many online sellers make, is from how do you sell, first you sell on Etsy and you might sell $100 a month. Then you make a course on how to sell on Etsy and you make $1,000 a month teaching people how you sell on Etsy. Yeah. And that is such a well-worn path at this point. That happens in every platform. I'm doing that now with Shopify, right? We sell on Shopify, but I also teach about it. Many Amazon sellers have made that jump. It's such a well-worn path, but the math behind it and the product logic behind it is totally important to think through, because there's a reason why people are doing it, and it works. And that's because digital goods are amazing for a lot of reasons, which we should talk about scientifically, mathematically. And, that's why this all works,
All right. So tell us why. We can't leave that lying there. And digital goods are amazing. I can talk about, tell us more. Why are they so amazing?
Yeah. So the basic idea with digital goods is something called near zero marginal cost. So let's say, for example, this podcast is taking us an hour to make, and you put a lot of time into it ahead of time. And I have a lot of time ahead of time in this topic conceptually, but nonetheless, we're into it for an hour, right? Now, let's say my bill rate's $100 an hour and yours is $100 an hour. We're into this for $200. Now, fine, whatever. So then the question is, what's it cost for you to get an additional listener after you get the first listener? It costs you nothing. Right. And so, and this is, podcasts are traditionally free, but if it was a paid product, the same math applies. Digital goods have this amazing attribute called near zero marginal cost, which means the replication of it doesn't cost anything, as opposed to even the cheapest manufactured item. Let's say you're selling something that's super cheap, that, you produce it for 59 cents and you can sell it for $10 or something, like some amazing thing like that. Right. Well, if you want 10,000 units, you still have to have 59 cents times 10,000.
Yeah.
So even the most amazing physical product still requires capital intensive investment. And then if you want to sell an additional unit, you've got to pony up another 59 cents. Now that seems like, oh, no big deal, but it is a big deal. And so this idea of near zero marginal cost is an important idea. Now it unlocks a whole set of amazing attributes. So for example, podcasts can traditionally be free. They fall on the heels of radio broadcasting conceptually, which was traditionally free, but it wasn't really free. It was monetized by third-party advertising. So you've got the ad spend happening that supports the platform. The podcast universe has made that same dynamic occur. So you've got these opportunities where you can create a product for zero. And, you hear stories about this all the time. You create a podcast for $0 and it blows up and you can monetize it. And, you're making real money on the back of zero allocated capital. Now, in economic terms, go talk to an economist about this stuff and they get like sugar, twitches and, all giddy happy when they can talk about this kind of stuff. So, that's the general idea related to digital goods. So,
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And one of the things I've done with the podcast up till now is until recently was to sell my time, either in the form of one-to-one for mentoring and coaching, which is a very time-tested, very straightforward way of doing things. But that's not strictly a digital good. It's a service, straightforward, really. But what I've just been in the throes of creating, as you know, because we've been working hard on this together in terms of improving the branding and stuff. And by the way, just got to say, you're fantastic at the branding stuff. We'll have to get you back on the show. There's another seed there for people to pester me about. But yeah, basically, I have finally got a digital course, which means I can sell something. And although I want to give massive value to people, I don't personally have to be there to deliver it. I have to be there to create it, but not to deliver. So somehow there's a separation of creation and delivery, which fascinates me with digital goods, which I think is unique amongst, say, services or hard goods. Have you got any more thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two big paths in the road. One would be, do it through your own site, and then the other is do it through, distribution services. Obviously, we mentioned podcasts, and obviously people know how you get those at this point. But there are other platforms. Udemy, for example, for online courses, it's a massive opportunity. Basically, there's a huge arms race right now for which platform will be the Google of online learning. Yeah. And Udemy is the Google right now. 25 million students, and their goal is to get to 100 million quickly. And so it's online course driven. Now, it started with technology courses like Python and stuff like that, but then it's expanded to business, and now it's expanded to more soft skills and crafts and things like that. And the universe of what you can teach on Udemy is insanely broad. They have insights tools that you can go look at to see the demand for certain topics. So you could go look to see if in your niche or industry, people are looking for, just pick some random topic, like maybe you sell handheld electronics, and maybe it's like radio, walkie-talkies or something like that, if that's even still a thing. And then you go to Udemy and you look to see, is there demand for that type of course? These are the ways you can link it together. So distribution is a huge piece as you think about creation process. Now, that ties right into pricing as well. So, and which is a huge bucket of, kind of interesting ideas. Stuart Brand was the original thinker 25, 30 years ago that made the classic quote, "Information wants to be free," which most online sellers have heard. And it's completely true. So what happens is that there's a race to the bottom with information. And in many places, the information that somebody would charge you $2,000 to get access to, like, oh, how do you do, email marketing or whatever, is, 20 years ago, that was, somebody would pay $1,000 for that secret insight knowledge. And then it was like, oh, now it's a $27 product. And then now, oh, that's the stuff that we give away for free. So the idea that, what Eben Pagan describes as the free line is constantly going down. So depending on which niche or industry you're in, you've got to think through pricing strategy and how can you ultimately survive given that dynamic. And there are strategies for doing that, but that's the idea that you got to work through.
Excellent. Well, talking strategies, I think let's wrap this episode up because I like to give people sort of bite-sized chunks. I think the last thing I'd say on that before we leave the sort of big picture stuff, and then in our next episode, we'll plunge into more of the how to do this, assuming that people are interested. One thing to say is that is no different on Amazon, except that you have a certain kind of minimal physical cost for creating some widget and shipping it. Yeah. But broadly speaking, that cost is so incredibly low in China specifically, and that is 80% of the world's manufacturing. If you really wanted to simplify life and be crude, you just say manufacturing happens in China, period. And that's almost true. 20% is a hell of a rounding error. That's the rest of the world. But still, and one of the effects of that is that they have basically, you wouldn't say information wants to be free, but goods on Amazon want to be as low priced as possible. And that is a constant battle that we face. So I think that it's important to bear in mind when we compare different business models or even, huge level, models too small a word for this, but big level possibilities of digital versus hard goods. To see that, I see that pattern so strongly, and anyone who's sold on Amazon for more than 3-6 months will see the same thing. So
sure.
that trend is mirrored across the planet in every way, really. And I don't even know what's driving that. An economist could tell us, but I know that this is happening. So again, that is not a reason, I think, to not go into digital goods because of a lack of perception of value. I think that's just probably in the perception level, isn't it?
Well, there's a ways around it for sure. Let's dive into that maybe in our next chat. Yeah,
Let's
for sure.
Dive into that. But the first thing to say is to wrap this episode up. Really, now you've as ever caused me to think clearly about it. I realize what a sea of digital product opportunities I'm moving in, and just how big that is. So, Jason, thank you so much for bringing that thought to the table, and look forward to talking to you about more of the nuts and bolts of how to take advantage of this in the next episode.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Let's do it.